You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Trump's latest freakout is a national emergency, security expert, based on an article by Matthew Rossa. Trump's decline is not the crisis. The system that leaves him in command is. The source piece argues that Trump's cognitive deterioration is no longer a private pathology, but a public danger, citing his erratic rants, his fixation on a losing prosecution, and warnings from a psychiatrist about grandiosity, paranoia, impulsivity, and vindictiveness. That is the frame. The political reality is harsher. The problem is not merely that Trump is unstable. The problem is that an entire governing apparatus keeps treating instability as a usable feature. The man is not the whole story. Trump's incoherence matters because he sits at the center of institutional power. He is not a commentator, a gadfly, or a noisy surrogate. He is the president, with policy authority, command influence, and sole control over nuclear weapons in a time of war, as the source notes. That is the axis of the story. The danger is not that Trump says bizarre things. The danger is that bizarre things now travel through the executive branch as if they were strategy, and too many people around him and around the country have learned to translate breakdown into intent. That translation is cowardice dressed up as analysis. The enablers know exactly what they are doing. The source says even relatives and close advisors have noticed the decline. That means this is not ignorance. It is accommodation. When aides, allies, and party functionaries explain away rants as the weave or some brilliant tactical performance, they are not clarifying Trump. They are insulating themselves from the consequences of telling the truth. They know the difference between a coherent political choice and a mind that cannot reliably sort reality from grievance. They choose to cover it anyway because the cover serves their power. That is the key institutional fact. The Republican coalition is not trapped by Trump's confusion. It is still extracting value from him. Normalization is the weapon. The source rightly points to the public becoming inured to Trump's strange rants. That numbness is not accidental. It is the product of repetition, media drift, and political habituation. What should read as crisis gets filed away as Trump being Trump. That is how authoritarian systems survive long after the joke stops being funny. They rely on a public trained to lower its expectations for truth, competence, and restraint. Each new outrage is made to seem like just another episode, which is exactly how deliberate harm gets recoded as atmosphere. The press often mistakes this for balance or maturity. It is neither. It is a laundering operation for institutional decay. The real risk is command authority. The article emphasizes the possibility of more dire consequences if the country faces a serious geopolitical threat. That is the right alarm, but it should be made more concrete. A leader who cannot accept corrective information does not become safer under pressure. He becomes more dangerous, because reality itself becomes an enemy that must be suppressed. That is what makes the psychiatrist's list matter. Grandiosity without moral safeguards, paranoia, vindictiveness, and impulsivity are not colorful descriptors. They are an operational warning about command behavior. A person like that does not respond to evidence by adjusting course. He responds by demanding obedience. The institutional failure is not only Trump's, it is the system that centralizes power so heavily that one damaged man can turn his private delusions into public risk. Democrats cannot pretend this is mere freakishness. There is a temptation, especially among cautious liberal professionals, to talk about Trump as a personal anomaly that is too small. Trump is the endpoint of years of normalization, Republican nihilism, and elite refusal to enforce consequences until the damage is already embedded in the office. Democrats should not answer this with therapeutic language or abstract calls for calm. They should treat Trump's instability as a governance crisis and act like the people who understand that institutions do not defend themselves. The issue is not that he is embarrassing. The issue is that the machinery of the state is still letting him sit on the controls. The systemic error. The larger pattern is plain. Authoritarian politics does not require a competent authoritarian. It only requires a compliant one, or a coalition willing to pretend incompetence is a plan. Trump's decline is being absorbed by a political culture that rewards denial, punishes honesty, and confuses power with legitimacy. That is the real scandal. Not that Trump is drifting further from reality. That part is visible. The scandal is how many institutions continue to orbit him as though reality were optional. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to AlterNet for today's article. With the automated voice of Lesak, thanks for listening.